Hi, ArcfieldWeather.com meteorologist Paul Dorian here on Thursday morning, May 5th. A very active weather pattern continues across the nation. We had some tornadoes yesterday reported in northern Texas. That area of severe weather will shift a little bit to the east today. We'll talk about that over the next few minutes. Anywhere from eastern Texas across to northwestern Louisiana, Arkansas under the gun today for possible tornadic activity and, of course, severe thunderstorms as well. Meanwhile, a soaking rain event is headed to the Ohio Valley and then to the Mid-Atlantic region for the Friday-Saturday time period. That particular storm system will intensify as it moves to the east across the Ohio Valley towards the eastern seaboard. Winds will actually get quite strong by the time we get to Friday night and Saturday for the I-95 corridor region and certainly for coastal regions. That same low pressure system then moves off the east coast over the western Atlantic, stalls out, and a tremendous high builds in the upper part of the atmosphere over southeastern Canada by the early part of next week. And that high pressure aloft will help to force the stalled out low pressure area back westward towards the eastern seaboard sometime later next week. So very interesting weather pattern for the next several days. First of all, here is the outlook by the Storm Prediction Center of NOAA for today and tonight in terms of the possibility of severe weather. And again, Arkansas, northwestern Louisiana, eastern Texas in an enhanced threat zone region today. There were tornadoes yesterday across Texas and perhaps even into Oklahoma. Not confirmed yet across Oklahoma, but certainly in Texas there were plenty of visible tornadoes. And again, that area of severe weather threat shifts a little bit to the east today, all the way into the Mississippi and Tennessee valleys. Have to be on guard later today into early tonight. It continues to shift a little bit to the east on Friday, but it weakens somewhat. Cooler air will actually end up dominating the scene in the eastern part of the nation, certainly by Friday night and Saturday. Much cooler than normal conditions. And that cool weather will continue into Sunday as well across the eastern third of the nation. So watch out in this particular zone over the next several hours. Well, before we break down the zero-Z run of the GFS model, let's take a look at the forecast map of total precipitation by the GFS for the next 3 days. This really runs from this morning, Thursday morning, all the way to Sunday morning. And you certainly have a lot of precipitation to talk about in the form of rain and thunderstorms from the southern and central plains all the way into the mid-Atlantic region. This purple area represents 2+ inches of rainfall in the mid-Atlantic region, and again, that is a Friday and Saturday soaking rain event coming to places like DC, Philadelphia, New York City. It'll be a cool rain event as well, and winds will pick up noticeably. An onshore flow out of the east or northeast come Friday night and Saturday in and around I-95 and certainly all the way to coastal sections. Most of this rainfall falls over the next 12 to 24 hours or so out over the central plains all the way to the Mississippi Valley. And again, watch out in this area right here for the possibility of severe weather today and tonight, including, unfortunately, the threat for additional tornadoes. Well, let's take a look at 3 different maps from the zero-Z run of the GFS. First, we're looking at the vorticity field at 500 millibars. These are, again, areas of spin in the upper part of the atmosphere that can lead to upward motion down at the surface level. In other words, upward motion that can lead to clouds, rain, thunderstorms. And here is a very impressive system that is a key factor in the threat for severe weather today and tonight. It certainly was a key factor yesterday. We've talked extensively about cold air outbreaks coming from Canada into the U.S. That is feeding fuel to the fire as well. Colder, drier air drops in from the northwest to the southeast and encounters some warm and humid air flowing out of the Gulf of Mexico into the deep south, into the central and southern plains today, into the Mississippi Valley. This is will lead to a lot of upper motion right here, eastern Texas, Arkansas, right into the Tennessee Valley, and unfortunately the threat for severe weather. And watch as we I want to quickly go through this over the next 7 days or so. Watch what happens with this system. This is a system that will spawn the development of strong low pressure that tomorrow moves across the Ohio Valley, then brings a soaking rain event to the Mid-Atlantic region Friday into Saturday, then moves over the western Atlantic, and as very strong high pressure forms over southeastern Canada, this system will grind to a halt and then turn back west, retrograde, back towards the eastern seaboard, probably as a subtropical system. Who knows? NOAA may call it a tropical system sometime later next week as it backs up and returns back to the eastern seaboard. Not a strong system, but still something to watch for later next week, and an unusual system. So let's move quickly and focus in on this particular upper air feature right here. Here we go. It's moving across the Ohio Valley on Friday, over the Mid-Atlantic region. Then it dives to the south and east over the western part of the Atlantic. At this point, kind of grinds to a halt. We're moving forward now into the early part of next week. And look at it. It starts to move back to the west. And here we go. By the middle of next week, it returns back to the eastern seaboard, maybe as a subtropical system. We'll have to see how that evolves over the next several days or so. And it continues to slide to the south and west, back towards the southeastern U.S. coastline. Again, all of this is helped along by tremendous high pressure forming aloft here at 500 millibar level over southeastern Canada. We can see that better in the 500 millibar height anomaly forecast maps. And indeed, let's take a look at the 500 millibar height anomaly forecast maps. Blue areas represent lower heights compared to normal, upper level low, orange high pressure ridging. And watch what happens in this part of Canada over the weekend and into the early part of next week. It'll be very noticeable here as we move forward quickly. Again, the first system moves out over the Ohio Valley, then soaking rain event for Mid-Atlantic on Friday into Saturday, then it moves out over the western part of the Atlantic Ocean. This is the Sunday morning forecast map of 500 millibar height anomalies. Notice across Hudson Bay region of Canada, eastern Canada, orange is showing up. That represents higher heights than normal, higher pressure than normal, and it really intensifies. Take a look here by the time we get to Monday morning. Very, very anomalous high pressure ridging forms over southeastern Canada by early next week. Meanwhile, low pressure that helps to cause severe weather yesterday in Texas and Oklahoma, today in Arkansas, Louisiana, Tennessee Valley, moves across the Ohio Valley tomorrow into the Mid-Atlantic region by Saturday, off the eastern seaboard. It stalls out by the time it gets to about this location and then starts to retrograde back to the west by the middle of next week. Look at this. By next Wednesday morning, it backs to the west towards the Outer Banks, and very, very, very strong high-pressure ridging forms across northern New England, southeastern Canada. If this were the heart of the tropical season, this is something I always look for. High-pressure ridging in this part of North America is always a warning sign, a red flag for residents along the east coast of the U.S., especially from the Outer Banks down to Florida. It opens the door for tropical systems to back to the west, move from east to west back towards the eastern seaboard. In fact, that's what will happen later next week. This is early in the season. The waters are still generally relatively cool this time of the year. This can be considered perhaps a subtropical system. Maybe NOAA would end up calling it a tropical system. Who knows? But this is something, some kind of a pattern we'll certainly pay attention to if it happens in July, August, September. But let's move forward here a little bit later into next week, and it just sticks around for a few days. This system ends up going to the west and then kind of dives to the south and west, and ultimately could end up over Florida by the time we get to the end of next week. This is next Friday morning, more than a week away, with very, very strong ridging centered over the Hudson Bay region of Canada. And this stalled out low pressure area will back towards the Carolina coastline, then probably drop to the south and west towards Georgia and Florida by later next week. Well, let's wrap up by looking at the surface forecast maps from the operational run of the GFS at 0Z. And right here, this is the zone of concern for the next several hours. And the GFS certainly has a lot of rainfall depicted here with embedded very strong thunderstorms. Arkansas, eastern Texas, northern Louisiana, all the way into the surrounding areas of the Tennessee Valley, the Mississippi Valley. Watch out for severe thunderstorms and the possibility of tornadoes today. That same low pressure area then starts to head towards the Ohio Valley by the time we get into Friday, and it crosses the Ohio Valley with a soaking rain event for the Ohio Valley on Friday. That rain moves into the Mid-Atlantic region early on Friday, maybe early to midday on Friday in D.C., Philadelphia, New York City, and it ends up being a very soaking rain event Friday into Saturday for the Mid-Atlantic region and the Ohio Valley as this low pressure area ends up heading towards the eastern seaboard. Don't be surprised if some of the rain falls heavily at times in the I-95 corridor region Friday night and Saturday. Don't be surprised if winds start gusting up to 30 miles per hour or so, at least inland locations out of the east or northeast. An onshore flow of air as the low pressure moves to the eastern seaboard by Saturday morning. Unfortunately, it hangs around on Saturday for the most part. A rainy, chilly, windy day. D.C., Philadelphia, New York City. Much of New England will be spared from this particular system because of that very strong high pressure area forming over southeastern Canada. It kind of suppresses that low to the south, and New England, much of New England, will escape this nasty weather associated with this low pressure area for Friday and Saturday. Then we move into the latter part of the weekend. Here we go by Sunday morning. There'll be just a tremendous battle going on. Very difficult forecast for Sunday, Mother's Day. Places like D.C., Philadelphia, New York City, right along that I-95 corridor region. I think it's a little easier of a forecast along coastal sections of the Mid-Atlantic on Sunday. Lousy. Looks like probably rainy, chilly, windy remaining into Sunday along coastal sections of eastern Virginia, Delmarva Peninsula, New Jersey, right along, let's say this area right here, the I-95 corridor region. Quite a battle going on between this high pressure that's trying to build in from the north and east and the stalling out low pressure area that's just hanging around off the eastern seaboard. So Sunday, probably partly sunny, breezy, chilly, D.C., Philadelphia, New York City. Maybe some shower activity as well. Just cannot rule that out with this stalled out system nearby. Then it grinds to a halt, starts to turn back to the west by the time we get into the middle of next week. Here we go by Tuesday night and then Wednesday. And again, it's not going to be a very strong system, but it's an interesting system because it ends up retrograding, basically as a way of saying it backs in from the east to the west towards the coastline, probably called a subtropical low at this point. Hangs around, may end up dropping to the south and west from the Carolinas towards Georgia and Florida. And here we go, by the time we get into next Friday morning time period, still have that low pressure area hanging along the eastern seaboard with very strong high pressure sitting over southeastern part of Canada. So very active weather pattern going forward, a very interesting weather pattern going forward. Watch out for severe weather, possibility of tornadoes today. Mississippi Valley, Tennessee Valley, focused area is eastern Texas, northwestern Louisiana, Arkansas. Watch for a soaking rain event for the Ohio Valley, Mid-Atlantic region from Friday into Saturday. It becomes very windy and cool as well. Winds could gust up to 30 to 40 miles per hour inland areas by Friday night and Saturday, and even stronger than that along coastal sections. Unfortunately, the coastal sections will have lousy weather hanging on into Sunday. Tough call for the I-95 corridor region on Sunday, Mother's Day. And then later next week, that same stalled out low pressure area will move to the west, impact the eastern coast of the U.S. sometime later next week, probably as something that will be called a subtropical low. That's it for now. For ArcfieldWeather.com, I'm meteorologist Paul Dorian.